Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of Dunswell Zoo. I hope you're all well. We are building for the Pampas Deer in this episode, and it was really difficult for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Pampas Deer aren't kept in captivity outside of South America. They have been kept in captivity across the world in the past, but sort of since the early 2000s there hasn't really been any outside of South America. There was a couple in Europe in the early 2000s. The same goes for San Diego. Unfortunately, the animals are actually classed as an invasive species, so they're not typically kept in captivity for that reason, but also they've got the short end of the stick as far as appeal goes, because most people just look at them and think it's a deer, but they're really interesting animals. Actually, I learnt a lot sort of building this habitat for them, so it was difficult because I didn't really have a habitat to base this off, so it's mostly just come from my own imagination. I've drawn inspiration from other habitats for other animals, of course, but as far as, tailoring it to just the Pampas deer is concerned, it was a tough one. It was also tough because they have very specific planting requirements, and I wanted to create a certain feel in the habitat. And you'll see some of the struggles I had with planting a little later in this episode. But the Pampas deer can be found in South America. They're small-ish, certainly small as far as what I'd consider a deer. Not as small as the southern poodoo, though, I might add. They have a tan-coloured fur, which is lighter on the undersides and the inside of their legs. Their coats do not change with the seasons. They have short bushy tails, and when they run they lift their tails to reveal a white patch. Males, of course, have lightweight antlers, which they shed between August and September, and then grow a new set by December. Then, considering that, everything in the habitat to be scaled to a small deer, something bigger than the southern poodoo, but it's still a relatively small deer by comparison when you think of deers. So it was difficult, this habitat build. I'm not gonna lie, I struggled with it a bit, particularly the planting more than anything else. But they're in our Pantanal zone because, despite them being called Pampas deers, which means they would fit sort of in the Pampas pastures, or even, sort of the Peruvian prairie, maybe. They're actually found quite readily in the Pantanal wetlands. They tend to like areas of habitat that have flooding cycles. So hills and water. They don't like to be in the water all the time, of course. And grass that is high enough to cover a standing deer. That was something I wanted to incorporate into this habitat, was to have the deer sort of literally disappear in front of your eyes, because there's like tall grasses and stuff what they can disappear into. And hopefully I was able to achieve that. You can be the judge for that. I think I have, but we'll see. So, as far as groupings of Pampas deer are concerned, they're not actually separated by gender, and they don't have harems or pairs, so males will drift between different groups, and although they can be found in groups of 20 to 40, usually they'll only be sort of like between 4 and 6, maybe pushing up to 8, something like that. You only really get your between 20 to 40 if there's good feeding areas. Other than that, they're quite small numbers for a herd of deer. They do not defend their territory or their mates, but they do have displays of dominance. So they keep their heads up and keep their side forward using a slow, deliberate movement. So they don't just go at each other with their antlers. They do rub their antlers into vegetation and scrape them on the ground, and in doing so they rub a scent that comes from a gland on their head. They rub that into the plants and the objects. They don't fight per se, they just spar. They do bite, that's something they do. And when they feel they're in danger, they drop right down to the ground and hide as low as possible in all the foliage. And then when they feel like the time's come to run, they can bound off and reach about 100-200 meters. If they're on their own, they'll sort of like quietly slip away. They generally feed during the day, though they are active at night. They're very curious and like to explore, and they often stand on their hind legs to reach food or see over something. They don't have seasonal or even daily movements, so they just sort of stay in the same place really. And females will actually feign injury to distract a predator away from the fawn. So that's something I found really interesting, because usually they'll just sort of abandon the fawn, or they'll have an insurance fawn, so they'll give birth to two young and they'll keep them in separate places, and then the mother will flick between the two different places to make sure the young are okay. But no, these ones feign injury and sacrifice themselves. They like to eat shrubs and herbs. They prefer shoots, leaves and twigs, and during the rainy season their diet will include grass as well. They only ever have one fawn a year. What else can I tell you about the Pampas deer? Not an awful lot, I'll be honest. Not a lot is known about them. Like I said, they're only really kept in captivity in South America, which is where they're from. And unfortunately, they're near threatened, but I would personally rank them much higher than that. So they're threatened due to overhunting, poaching, and habitat loss, disease from domesticated and feral livestock, competition from invasive species, and over-exploitation. As a result, there is less than 1% of their natural habitat left, and Pampas deers have been harvested into the millions, particularly during the 1800s. Unfortunately, this trend looks to continue. Population numbers are decreasing, and there's some statistics in front of me here. In Parana state in Brazil, there's less than 100. In El Tapado, Uruguay, there's 800 individuals, and Los Ajos, Uruguay, 300 individuals. Corrientes, Argentina, 170 individuals. San Luis Province, Argentina, between 800 to 1,000 individuals. Bahia de San Borobojom, I apologise if I've slaughtered a language there. Buenos Aires, Argentina, 200 individuals. Santa Fe, Argentina, less than 50. The overall estimation is between 20 to 80,000 individuals. So I would personally rate them higher than near threatened. I would put them as vulnerable or even endangered. Because of that, that's why I'm including them in the zoo. They are very similar to the marsh deer in terms of sort of habitat, but I wanted to give them something different. I wanted this to be a very different habitat to the marsh deer, which is why for a start it's ground level primarily, and then you've got that raised viewing platform. We've gone for elephant grass here in the water. I think I keep that as it is with some reeds mixed in. And then for the land, I try elephant grass and I'm not happy with it. I try bamboo and I'm not happy with it. and I try... what's the other one? The common reeds, and I'm not particularly happy with them either. We do end up using not elephant grass, prairie cordgrass from the Frontier mod pack. But here we're just... Initially I was just going to cover the posts with some wood, but I decided to make a completely custom fence because I can. I don't make life easy for myself, but I enjoy what I do. So yeah, the Pampas Deer mod hasn't been updated for a very long time. There are some LOD issues, LODs. If you get far enough away, the males, the sort of the antlers become really, really massive and distorted. And the textures aren't fantastic on them either. It could do with some texture definition and maybe a couple of model updates as well. We have had some other ungulates since then. I think the Nile Lechui would probably be a good base for the Pampas Deer. Yeah, the theming for the Pantanal area, of course, is wetlands, it's water, so I really wanted to give them this very aquatic feeling habitat, but also still, you know, we're in the UK. It's not going to be completely tropical. It's not going to be like a Floridian swamp type of wetland. We've got some elephant grass, some common reeds, and a willow tree right at the end of the habitat. And then I just adjust the barrier that way. It is very big. They don't need nearly as much space as this. I think this habitat's actually 10 times bigger than they need. But just looking at it, I think this is sort of the size of habitat you would see them in. You know, thinking of the brow antlered deer at Chester Zoo, for example. They're in something probably bigger than this. The what's another ungulate? The Philippine spotted deer at Chester Zoo. They're in something at the moment probably about the same size as this, if not a little bit smaller, and they'll be moving to something that's just a little bit smaller. So I didn't feel that the habitat needs to be reduced that much. We may, however, introduce another species in the near future, just because obviously the grouping is like 4 to 6. We've got 5, I think, 4 females and a male we end up getting, and they've come from a reserve in South America in the hopes of starting a breeding program. Yeah, that just didn't look right to me either, so I get rid of that. And I do cut it. And here we are. That's all I've got for you this episode, it looks like. So these are the cinematics. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. This is the finished habitat. I apologise I didn't catch more on camera. It took a lot of time to figure out the planting and how things were going to work out. But I really like how the habitats come together. And it just probably needs a few finishing touches here and there. Either way, thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Plenty more Planet Zoo content on the way and already available. And you can find me on Instagram at JW_YT. Until the next time, my friends, enjoy what's left. Stay safe, stay kind, and I shall see you all next time. Thanks for watching, my friends, and bye-bye for now.